What's something that happened on a first date that made you decide against a second date? He used his pocket knife to cut me a slice of cake, and later scraped some dirt clumps off of his shoe with the same knife. I asked him if he ever cleaned his knife, and he replied, "No, why?" He also confessed that he was madly in love with me the same day. We had just met. He got us pulled over, car was searched, and he had a brick of coke in the trunk. I almost got arrested. He finally vouched this was a blind date and I was innocent. He tried to change my order with the waitress because I didn't order what he'd recommended. One was the time I took this girl to dinner and she could not stop staring at our waiter. I'll grant her one thing, I'm a guy and can admit this guy was probably totally hot for anyone who prefers men. Square-jawed and muscled college athlete type. I get it. But I didn't appreciate that she literally craned her neck every time the kitchen door swung open to see if he was walking out. Eventually I gave her enough cash to pay for my part of the meal, told her I'd noticed as though I couldn't have, suggested to her that she could get his contact info when she paid the bill, and left. He'd given me a fake name and was still in love with his ex, who was 17. He was 29. No thanks, dude. The guy told me he would still be together with his kid's mum if she had apologized for what she did wrong. Out of curiosity I asked what she did wrong. Was expecting something like she cheated, why I know something that actually needed apologizing for. Nope. Apparently she kept nagging one day and wouldn't shut up, so he tied her to a computer chair and went out for 3 hours and left her there. I said it doesn't sound like she was the one who needed to apologize and left. She kept writing to her friends on WhatsApp a play-by-play of the date instead of listening to me, so I stood up, paid my dinner and left because I found it disrespectful AF. He said nothing. I get he was nervous, but I was engaging. I asked questions that should have led to at least a few sentences of conversation, but no, one-word answers. It was dinner and a movie, so our only opportunity to talk was dinner. It was like pulling teeth. No thanks, no second date. Very recent, asked when I would get a real career. I love what I do. I'm a union stagehand in a major entertainment city. I have been in my industry for over 20 years, toured the country, toured the world, make a comfortable living. Yeah, no. That's pretty demeaning and I'm out. She took her hands off the wheel and said, "You think I'm crazy?" I literally jumped out at the next light. Told me that aliens cause jet lag and that I have the ghost of a fisherman following me around named Samuel on top of the 20 other bat-hit things she said at dinner. This was last night. 1. He tried to force a kiss. 2. He tried to get me to agree to marry him the next week. No, he wasn't an immigrant. 3. He said women were stupid and would believe anything he told them. I am a woman. 4. He said it was okay to drown puppies. It was actually humane. 5. He swore that it was impossible to get AIDS if you were straight. Found out a week later that he knew the whole time he was HIV positive. That's just some of them. One time I went on a date with a girl and during the date she starts talking about future plans with me. She was talking about how we are going to have kids together and how we were going to go on trips with my brother and his wife. I was in my mid-20s and had just started my career when this happened, so of course this freaked me out. Who jumps to those kind of conclusions during the first date? It was super awkward after because she worked with my mom and kept asking about me. He told me his 14-year-old cousin seduced him when he was 21. And it was somehow her fault he molested her because she was asking for it, and she knew he hadn't had any in a long time. And he had recently been released from prison for it. Being told, "The welts on my crotch aren't contagious." I was newly out, and I had had a crush on her for ages, so when she asked me out I was so excited. She was pretty, smart, very laid back, and had a great sense of humor. So things were going great initially. End of the date comes around, and she very casually drops the bomb on me that she's involved in an open investigation for vehicular manslaughter. She even hinted that it was purposeful and did not seem regretful. That was the end of that. He referred to every woman as a cunt, and we aren't in a country where that is common and harmless. His ex was a cunt, his aunt was a cunt, some random author he was telling me about for some reason was a cunt, etc. Cunt doesn't really bother me, but the way he said it was very aggressive and angry. After that he decided to argue with me about sports and politics and berate me for my choices in those areas. No need for a second date after that. Went on a date with a woman from the office. Thought we had good chemistry and got along well. She couldn't find her phone, so I tried calling it and someone from the restaurant answered. I went back in for her to get it and the waiter showed me I was saved in her contacts under free food. She clicked her fingers at the waitress. Stunning but vapid AF. I met her parents on the first date and she was terrified of me. Most awkward date ever. Said you're a really good kisser, Amber. My name is Ashley. She asked if I could clean her pet rat cage or hold her rat while she cleans it. Also listed a number of handyman tasks she needed me to tackle. He was super pushy about me having a third drink and got mad when I refused. She wouldn't stop going on and on about how much she wanted a baby. Called it her little creation and how she wanted multiple, tried to convince me to come back to her place for some fun. I dropped her off and dipped right away. She texted me every now and then after trying to meet up again, hell nah. He asked me how big my baby was and if I birthed him vaginally or had a C-section. His explanation was that he'd never slept with a mom before and had heard a baby can stretch out a vagina. I excused myself to the bathroom and promptly left the restaurant. He was clearly desperate to put a ring on anyone's finger. Intensely overly romantic despite not knowing me really at all. Put on Etta James' Sunday kind of love date was a Sunday by the way and tried to sing it at me while looking excessively earnest into my eyes. He was also in the military and we were both like 19. Go figure. He insisted on paying for our dinner instead of going Dutch, and then totally stiffed the server. I tried to leave a tip and he got pissed at me because he was paying and it was his decision to tip or not. She looked nothing like her photos. Smelled of cat piss covered taquitos. We were at a park and saw some girls playing softball and she said those girls look special ed with those helmets. Like fuck, I'm always down to give someone a chance but just yikes. I made an excuse to leave. My car smelled for like 2 days after that. He just kept making a weird amount of jokes about tapeworms. Her kid called me daddy. I went on a breakfast date once. Date orders 2 sunny side-up eggs. Proceeds to take 2 straws, poke one in each yolk and suck the yolk up. Don't even remember his name. The date felt more like a job interview to fill a position, rather than an actual date. He gave off a vibe of someone who wasn't into getting to know me as a person, but just listed his wants and needs. So at the end of the date, he asked how I thought it went and I said I didn't feel a click match. And he said, yeah, he was missing the wow factor. So I laughed my ass off, slightly offended, in the car home. Gosh, no idea I was auditioning for a contest. I was happy we only went for drinks, but even that felt a bit too long. I walked into the guy's house and there was Nazi shit all over his place, not in a collector kind of way but in a crazy kind of way. There was a mannequin wearing a KKK outfit in the corner. He was a satellite friend who I knew, but didn't know well. I've never come down with food poisoning so fast before. I got the fuck out of there. I was able to play sick for a couple days but it was super awkward ghosting him being we had the same friends. For the longest time I didn't go places he was at. Told me the Wounded Knee massacre was exaggerated and not that big of a deal. He didn't know anything about this particular historical event, mind you. He was just very sure that I didn't know what I was talking about and that Native Americans were just blowing things out of proportion. I don't even remember how the topic came up, but man. What do you even do with that? For no reason he started laughing, attracting the attention of nearby tables. I said, "What's so funny?" He said that he was just thinking of a joke. And then he laughed harder and harder until he was positively howling like a wolf. I decided no for a second date. This was weird, but years ago I went out on a date with a guy that voice fished me. Like catfished with his voice. He had already sent me a video that he was talking in, but when I met him he sounded completely different with a slight lisp. Which I would have gotten over, except he ended up taking me to a gas station to talk to his friend at the pump for 45 minutes. I faked an emergency and went home. I have had much worse first dates than that, but that one left me flabbergasted.